Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get into it with our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Charley. I'm just gonna say Charley, just because, like she said, it's gonna be easier for me as an American to pronounce it. I don't come at me, anyone from the UK, but she's coming to us all the way from the UK. Obviously, like I've said before, she's in Leeds, which is in the northern part, which is something that I learned right before we started talking here. But yeah, she's on here to share her health and fitness journey, and really, yeah, just talk all things health and fitness. Most importantly, she's our current guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Very welcome, Ryan.
Well, I do gotta ask. Well, here's the thing. I feel like because Ryan's such like an Irish, like UK name that like obviously she's gonna get my name right, but I get her name right wrong. But hey, it's oh my god, with all the names that I've had to memorize, literally it just goes in one ear and out the other, and I'm just being complete. Oh my god, it's ridiculous. But before we get into that conundrum, I always ask this question first to every single guest that I have on. What is the weather like in your neck of the woods right now?
Right now, it's sunny. It's really sunny, but it's raining like every 10 minutes, and then the sun's coming out, and it's got really, really cold. So here in the UK, like from October until about March, it is absolutely freezing. So yeah, very cold, but sunny today, which is quite nice.
I live in the coldest part of the United States, which will be at least in a month, where it can get to like -20, which is like our gasoline freezes solid in our cars, so you can't even drive your car. Yeah, it happens a couple of times. So yeah, I know what you're talking about with the cold, but so you're telling me so it's dreary and raining in the UK? I've never heard that one before.
I think that we would be used to it, but definitely just hate the rain.
Oh yeah, no, I I hate it. I mean, we did have a pretty big rainstorm last night, but yeah, it's looking at least sunny right now. So at least we both have nice weather now. But before we get into that and depress everyone else who is not dealing with at least somewhat decent weather, because I don't want to bring like flashbacks to them, why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're currently at right now?
It's such a long story, to be fair,
Take
but
as much take as much time as you want.
try and summarize. So, from being a youngster, like at primary school, I've always been into like sports and fitness. So I've always been very, very like lean and really tiny. So I tried all sorts of different sports as a kid. I've tried football, boxing, rugby, which my mum wasn't happy about, but I did quit all of them. Eventually when I got punched in the face or rugby tackled really hard. And then I became a dancer actually. So I started dancing, which my mum was really happy about. Did that all the way through like secondary school and college. Studied physical education at university as well, so I was going to be a PE teacher. And yes, I think I've always been involved in sports, but around college time, I used to play netball, and I basically went into like a to catch an interception, and a girl pushed me over, and I snapped my ACL completely. So that literally just put me out for like 2 years. Couldn't play sport, couldn't dance again for a while. So I then had to go to the gym. Like I used to go to the gym now and again anyway, but I only ever trained like biceps and abs. I didn't really know what I was doing. But
She had the
obviously
gym bro workout basically.
yeah, basically. So I had to go to the gym. Like I had no choice because they, with the graft that they did, they had to take out a hamstring to repair it. So I had one like smaller than the other. So I had to go to the gym to like build the muscle. And I literally just obviously kept going and going, seeing results. And it was literally a passerby in the gym that was like, "Have you ever tried bodybuilding? Because you've got like the shape for it." And automatically, I mean, I was only 21 because it was 5 years ago when I first started. And when he said bodybuilding, I just thought manly women, massive muscles, no thank you. And he literally just said, "Look, I know what you're going to say, but go and research like women's bodybuilding and you'll see what I mean." So I did. And then I was looking at the different classes like bikini, turn figure, and I sort of had a look and thought, I'm not that far off, I don't think. Like, maybe I should give this a go. Like, I can't do other sports anymore, so I might as well give it a go. So I found a coach who's from Hull, which is my hometown in the UK. Basically got recommended because he was the best for coaching women and had loads of titles under his belt. So I've been with him ever since. So I started bodybuilding 5 years ago. Did really well in my first year. I came third in my first show. Bearing in mind, I look at the photos now, and I was so skinny. All I had was a big bum, biceps, and abs, and that was it. Didn't have no shoulders, didn't have a back, didn't have quads. Like literally just skimming the surface. But the one thing I did do well was the routine part of it because dance background and things like that was my thing. I love that, and I still do. So I did quite well, came third, went to the British finals, came fourth, went to a different federation, came third, went to the British finals, came fifth, all in the same year. And then towards the back end of that year, in turn figure this was, I won my first shirt. I became Miss Yorkshire, and I was like, right, okay, I'm actually starting to get a bit of development. So me and my coach spent a lot of time working on the areas that I needed to improve. Obviously, basically everything apart from those three areas that I had. So we spent some time doing that, and then the year after, in 20, oh God, where are we now? 21 now, aren't we? So then the year after, in 2017, I won the British titles. So I won PCA British turn figure against 36 girls. I then went on the next week to win NABA turned figure British against 38 girls, I think it was. Basically, I had my two British titles, won the overall as well, which was really great because obviously the overall is a very prestigious award. Best presentation, all the rest of it. And that was a really big year for me. That was when it really took off. And then the year after, I went to Italy, actually, competed in Italy for the NABA Worlds, came second there, which was fine. And then took a year out. I emigrated to New Zealand, randomly emigrated there, got a job. Basically, was going out there as well to set up PCA New Zealand because they're in quite a lot of countries now. They're in the US as well. So yeah, basically did that. Came back and then decided that I've done everything pretty much in turn figure. Like I'd got to pretty much where I needed to be, and you can't get like a pro card or anything with turn figure. So I moved to athletic last year. Did my debut last year, came second, and currently I am 2 weeks out from the British finals. It's been a bit of a rocky road though this year. So when I started prep, I got COVID, and I actually got really sick as well. Like I was sick for about 3 or 4 weeks. Like it really got me. It was awful. So my prep actually then got reduced, obviously, to like 10 weeks, which is I'm no stranger to. Like I've always done a short prep because I've always stayed quite lean. But then 9 weeks ago, I also started horse riding last year, and I fell off a horse and I broke my collarbone. So my coach really wasn't happy. Like the stuff that I'm banned from is like massive now. Like I can't do anything because I just do stupid stuff and then break bones and things. So I actually wasn't planning on competing. Like we wrote it off this year. We didn't think I'd recover. So I had 4 weeks of just like moping around like with this injury, didn't know what to do. The bone was like completely broken. And then literally I just said to my coach, like, you know me so well, like, do you think I can do this? Like, and he just said, if anyone can do it, you can. And it actually turns out now I'm ready 2 weeks early as well. I'm pretty much stage ready now, which is great. So plan is hopefully to get a pro card. That's really what I want to do. I want to be a pro athlete for PCA. And then future goals, I think I want to move into IFBB. I want to do fitness because fitness for me, when you've got to bring the dance element in the routine, like it's literally like Oksana Grishina is like one of my idols. So that's the sort of level I want to get to. So yeah, very long-winded, but in terms of what's inspired and motivated me, it's pretty much just been like I want every year to be better than the last year. I started bodybuilding, and until I get to the very, 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 very top, then I've always got a new goal in mind. So yeah.
Well, I gotta say, are you the most injury-prone person like in the entire planet? It seems like, because I've only been injured once my entire life, and that was like through a sport. But you were like, yeah, you're breaking your collarbone, you're getting punched in the face, you're tearing your ACL. Jeez. Well, and I love that you brought up when you first heard about bodybuilding, because that's one thing that I deal with all the time with people, is that as soon as they picture bodybuilding, they think of like either the physique competitors, especially women. They think of either the physique competitors or the bodybuilders. They don't understand that's like, no, there's wellness, there's, bikini, there's figure, there's fitness, there's so much more to the sport. That's why I think it turns off so many people, because they don't understand that, like, no, you do not have to weigh 250 pounds of muscle basically then to like step on that stage and compete, though. There's just so many more options for that. But yeah, and I mean, when you were getting started too, I told you this before. I mean, it's a myth that I love to bust every time I do this podcast. Did you have that fear that a lot of women have, that, you might get like, oh, I'm going to get way too big just from looking at it? And I mean, well, obviously like you didn't, but even, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time now. How do you like to respond to that? Because that is something that still pops up.
Yeah, literally. I mean, for me, no, because I think because I've studied the human body for such a long time. Like, I did think I'd gain muscle quicker than how long it has taken. Like, I've been bodybuilding 5 years,
That's
and
what I'll say, is that it's the exact opposite for 99% of people, where they're like, okay, it's like,
oh
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I've literally come across it so much, and like there's so many, even some of my friends like even say like, oh, I don't go to the gym because I don't want to get hench. And I'm like, literally, it takes such a long time. Like if I even calculated the amount of hours I've spent in the gym for the last 5 years to look like how I do now, like so many hours have gone into this physique, and it takes such a long time to actually build muscle. I mean, if I think back to where I was, so when I first competed, um, around that first year, I was 54 kilos. But I was turned figure, so you have got quite a bit of fat still on you actually. Whereas now I am 55.5 kilos, but I'm shredded to the bone. So I've probably gained about 7 kilos of muscle in about 5 years. So only when you actually work out, it's marginal. It is quite a lot. In 5 years, obviously, naturally. I mean, there's obviously people that can take things that can make them get quicker. But like naturally, it does take a very, very long time. And to lift weights and actually get massive, it is all about calorie intake. It's all about weight. It's all about volume. So literally starting out in the gym and going and picking up a couple of weights isn't really going to do much, like at all. Like if you actually want to get hench, it is so hard. Like I find off season harder than prep, way harder, because to get the food down and to have the energy then, because you feel sluggish with all the food, to lift the weights and make sure you're progressing and PBing, I find that so much harder than actually stripping down for a show, like way harder. So yeah, it's such a myth, but it still is out there. And I just think if people just knew like how long it takes to get hench, like they have nothing to worry about.
Okay, you've said it multiple times, and this is the first time I've ever heard the word. What does henge mean?
Hench,
Hench.
hench, like massive, like
Oh, okay. Okay.
hench.
Okay. See, every time we have a guest from the UK, I learn a new UK phrase. I'm like, can I tell you the most shocking thing that I've ever heard in my entire? So I watched the show Ted Lasso, which is a new show where it's about the American that goes and coaches football over there. Well, soccer really, but I didn't realize that in the UK, when you call someone fit, it doesn't necessarily mean that like they're in shape. It might mean that they're attractive or
Oh
that you think
yeah,
that they look
fit.
good. Because people's like, oh yeah, that person, they're so fit, and I look at them and I'm like, they're not really that like in shape, really that much or whatever. Like I didn't understand that until like I had another guest on, and then they're like, oh yeah, fit means that like they're attractive and stuff like that. Like they're. And I was like, oh okay, yeah, it means something different here. Like if you say someone's fit here, it means like
Yeah,
they're like in shape and stuff like that. So yeah,
I've
there's
got a friend who said the same. Like she said, cute. Like an American would say, like, oh, like she's cute, mean like she's good looking. Cute in the UK basically means like it's kind of like a friend zone thing. Like
oh yep.
if I call a boy cute, it's like, oh yeah, you're really like a nice guy, but yeah, you're definitely not boyfriend material.
But I mean, going back to, I mean, I love to talk genetics on this podcast because so many people are on Instagram and social media. And I mean, I hear this all the time. Oh my God, I want his arms. I want her abs. I want their back. People just do not understand that you cannot look like someone just by training like them. And look, I think so many people fall under that category. But whenever someone first gets started working out, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much. And then they have that one body part that just drags behind. They have to train to oblivion. I mean, my back was the one thing that took off for me where because I worked in warehouses really all throughout growing up and stuff like that, like lifting and loading boxes where you either got a really nice back or you quit. But I'm also 6'3", so my legs and my lower body are just absolutely shot where I always make the joke I could inject pure muscle into my legs and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, it's my calves don't even get me started. That's like the most genetic thing out there. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started? One that really took off and then one that you didn't need to train really, or the one that you needed to train like into overdrive?
I'd probably say like I wasn't allowed to train glutes for like the first 3 years. Like I've always had, I mean, it's great for a girl. Like I definitely class myself as privileged in that area. Never had to train glutes. Like even now, like I don't ever isolate my glutes. My glutes are really overpowering. So every leg exercise, my glutes will take over. Um, which is great for a woman, obviously. So glutes, yeah, definitely was the easiest thing for me. Never had a problem with them, like pretty much done and dusted. I'd say the area that when I first started, I mean, like I say, I didn't have shoulders, I didn't have a back, I didn't have quads, calves. I swear, calves are genetics, and I hardly train them. Like you don't really need them as a woman in athletic. You kind of need a bit, but not a lot. So I stay away from them. But I'd probably say, um, the first thing I needed was shoulders, and I really, really worked them. Like now, I'm so happy with my shoulders. Now I probably don't need to do much with my shoulders, but I did do like 2, 3 years of pure graft, like shoulders every other day, sort of thing. The area now, I'd probably say because I've moved to athletics, so you've got to see a lot more detail. So it is a lot of just more dieting, really. But I'd probably say the one area I really have been focused on is my hamstrings because obviously from the back, even though I've got good glutes, you want that tie in and you want to be able to see some definite lines in your hamstrings. So obviously to see them is diet, but you also need something there. So I've really been trying to smash my hamstrings now because when you've been bodybuilding for quite a while, you then sort of pull apart your physique to see what can get better, in terms of like size or definition or maturity. So yeah, and I like what you said there about like you're never going to look like somebody else because you never will because genetics play quite a big role in bodybuilding, and I think there's a lot of people who think they can just do bodybuilding. Anybody, well, I don't want to say anybody can do it because they honestly can't. Like if you haven't got the right genetic makeup for it, you physically wouldn't be able to do it. Like you physically wouldn't have the right shape for it. So
Anybody can try it, I'll say that, but it's like not every but it's like, yeah, there's like I'd say it's probably like only like 5% of the population just have the genetics down where they could actually like accomplish something in the sport because yeah, it is so rare. And yeah, that's one thing that most people don't understand about shoulders, that for anyone that I've had on, they basically say, yeah, the same thing. You just basically have to train them to death. That's like the only thing for shoulders for some people. And that's probably one of the other least genetic things too, especially for women. But I mean, you mentioned it briefly too, and it's nutrition is so important in this lifestyle, and people do not get that as well. Where I still have these friends, I'm 27 myself, where I still have these friends who still think that, oh, I can go to McDonald's, 2 or 3 times a week and I'll still be in shape. And it's like, well, call me 5 years from now and tell me how that works out for you. But I mean, this nutrition thing is, I mean, people just do not understand that abs are made in the kitchen and that all the other stuff that it entails. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you first started to take things seriously in bodybuilding?
to be honest, it's been quite easy for me because I've got a coach. He literally tells me what to do, right? So for me, it's quite good. It's just like there's the plan and you follow it. I think the biggest changes. I mean, in my first couple of years, like there was no fruit at all. Obviously there was veg in there, which I sort of did like on a give or take basis, but then that really messed up my stomach a little bit because obviously you wasn't getting the digestion, you wasn't getting the fiber that you needed. Um, I think what I've sort of struggled with this time is I have got a little bit of berries in my diet, which is quite nice. There's quite a lot of good nutrition in there, and I'm packing the veg because the calories are low, right? So when I'm on my low days, it's like the bags of veg that you get, I have a full one. Like I don't even have like a little bit, I have a full one. And yeah, my digestive system's great now. But yeah, I think that the main thing is it's portion size and it's weighing. So like when my diet's written out, everything's in grams, everything's weighed. And obviously it depends as well whether it's cooked or uncooked. So he writes it out in terms of like if it's weighed cooked or weighed uncooked. Because like like mince, for example, like beef mince, if you cook it and then weigh it, you'll get more. Whereas if you weigh it then cook it, you get less, right? So it's all about the portion size really. And I guess like a lot of people work in macros. Like I'm not a really big fan of macros. Like I know some people who are in prep and they can have cookies and stuff like that. And for me, it's like I get it because obviously you're hitting whatever calorie intake you need to. But in terms of what your body actually needs, in terms of like carbs, fats, protein, like you're best off eating clean and then adding things. So I've been quite lucky. So like I don't I don't make prep miserable, right? So when I have my meals there, I just buy really reduced fat ketchup, really reduced fat mayonnaise, reduced fat barbecue sauce, all the sauces, reduced fat. And I do put sauce on my everything, even right up until show day. Um, one thing I don't do is salt my food though, but nearer the show to dry you out, you can salt it. I have 30-calorie hot chocolates, so I'll have one of them before bed, just so I can like get something nice and sweet in. I even get a coconut latte or an almond latte every day when I'm at work, from like the coffee shop because it's probably the best milk alternative. So there's some things that I just keep in because mentally it keeps me like focused, but also you're still getting some satisfaction from things. And like you can still use spices and herbs and things like that. Like I think some people who make it so bland is when they think prep's miserable. And it's like it doesn't need to be that miserable. Like I actually enjoy all my meals. Like my boyfriend, when I actually he'll eat the same as I eat when he's here, which is really motivational because then it's like I sitting there watching people eat burgers.
Oh, are you kidding
Um,
me? If I was there, I'd be eating pizza right in front of you. And I'd be like, yeah, do your thing, Charlie. Yeah, go ahead, do it. Yeah,
keep
yeah,
keep going.
yeah.
Um,
You mentioned hot chocolate, and literally, I mean, that's going to be what I'm going to be living off of for the next, like, yeah, for the next 3 months, really. That's, or at least during all throughout winter. God, and just putting the whipped cream on it. God, I'm gonna start drooling now, even thinking about that now. But yeah, that nutrition.
there's no whipped cream, unfortunately. I mean, you can get reduced fat whipped cream, but I'm too close to show now to have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many different things. And like I say to people all the time, even switching to like 0 calorie energy drinks, I smash them. I smash Coke Zero. Like a lot of people do. And I just think if people just switch to the lower versions of things, and which tastes virtually the same, you see such a difference. Like the amount of calories in a tablespoon of like light mayo to normal mayo is like ridiculous.
Well,
So yeah,
sometimes they taste even better. No one will ever convince me that Diet Pepsi doesn't taste better than Pepsi to me. I mean, that's the one thing for me where, yeah, and Diet Coke for me honestly does taste better than regular Coke. I don't know. I mean, so honestly, those two for me at least are, dead, dead giveaways for me at least. But I mean, how have you been dealing with this whole COVID pandemic, especially being in the UK where the gyms, I think, has been shut down a little bit more than they have here. We only had one shutdown period. I was gonna say you should have stayed in New Zealand when you were living there because you they didn't shut down really at all. I mean, and everything. I mean, they continued to live their lives normally. But what has this whole journey been like for you? Because I mean, especially for bodybuilders, once those gyms shut down like worldwide, I was like, oh my god, how are these bodybuilders gonna deal with it now?
it was awful. I mean, I was only ever planning on competing at the back end of the year anyway. Um, so I mean, don't get me wrong. At first, I was thinking the world has ended. Like, what am I going to do? Because I've never been that person who can gym or do cardio from home. Like, there's some people that get stairmasters and treadmills and stuff for prep. I can't do that. Home for me is sleeping, eating, and relaxing. Like that is what home is. So when we had to work from home and technically gym from home, I was like, this is awful. The only good thing about the UK throughout that first lockdown was that the weather was amazing. Um, so at first, I just sort of did what I could. I bought some dumbbells, did them in the garden. It was so hard to stay motivated, but I was quite lucky. So I stayed at my boyfriend's quite a lot through the pandemic, and he lives like down south, and it's so like countrified and nice, and they've got stables. So we basically bought every sort of gym equipment that we could and turned the stables into a gym. So we had like a cable where you could do lat pull down and everything like that, and loads of different attachments. We had a bench. We had about 200 kilos of plates. So we actually did all right. So I literally lived there and just tried to do what I could, which was great. And then obviously I competed, and then we went back into another lockdown, which was a bit shorter. I think it was about maybe 2 months potentially. But at that point, like I managed to write to the council because there's a gym around here where they would have let me in. Like some big gyms wouldn't, but some smaller gyms like they would let you in. So I wrote to the council and just said, look, I've got a show coming up. I've got the British finals. Like, this isn't just like I want to go to the gym. This is like I have to really. And they wrote back and basically like gave me an exemption. So I managed to train about 3 or 4 times a week, which was pretty all right to be fair at this gym. So I was quite lucky in a sense of it, but it was difficult. Like it really, really was difficult. Like especially the shows, like so many shows ended up getting cancelled. Like we thought the show I was going to do last year was going to get cancelled, and there was a lot of people who obviously were prepping. We went into lockdown in the March. People were prepping from like November all through Christmas, and then it got to March. Their show was in April, and it got cancelled. And it was like they were literally 3 weeks out, and it was like that is gutting. Especially like ruining your Christmas by like eating chicken and rice rather than like Christmas dinner. um, but yeah, it was difficult, man. It was really, really difficult. My boyfriend sold all of his gym stuff now, so I'm just praying to the gods that nothing ever happens like that again.
Did you deal with any food shortages over there? Because I'm in the Midwest, which is like big farmland territory. So like we got to a thing where the pigs were getting so fat because no one was buying them that like they just had to just get rid of all the pigs. And I mean, so we had like chicken shortage over here. But did you have any of that over there?
Oh my days, it was awful, right? So obviously I do my food shop and like I normally buy in bulk, so I'll get like 10 packs of like micro rice, so I'll get like 2 packs of chicken, I'll get beef and all the rest of it. Literally, they limited it in the shop so you could only buy 3 packs of rice at once. And I was like, right, okay. Then there was no rice left. And I was like, what really pissed me off was that I was just sat there thinking, nobody eats chicken and rice in the UK. Like, majority of the population are overweight, and everybody eats cakes and eats out. The cake aisle was absolutely fine. Why the hell is everyone buying rice? That is literally what I eat.
Because they know their priorities. The cakes have to always be there.
Yeah, that's it.
The cakes need to be rolling before anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crap, and I think what was even more worse. I mean, like there was like old people that couldn't get what they wanted, so basically they'd only open the shops like in the morning for them, which was great. But people are just selfish in the UK, man. Like so selfish, and you see it. I mean, I don't know if you saw like we've got a petrol shortage now. Apparently, it's not that we're out of
I've
petrol.
seen that on Twitter now, where like people are like actually like
Yeah.
filling up on at gas stations,
Oh,
literally like their jugs and stuff like that, and you can only store like a certain amount. I was like, first of all, in America they would never let that fly because like they're like, oh, someone could like make a bomb or something out of that. But like, so yeah, so now like, but so yeah, what's the whole situation with that? Because I saw that on Twitter because I follow some British people on Twitter, and I saw that I was like, what the hell's going on over there?
it's not even, we haven't even got a shortage of fuel. Like what it is that we, because obviously we've now out of, like we've done Brexit and we're obviously out of the European Union. There's a lot of lorry drivers that couldn't get their visa, so we're short on the drivers for petrol. That's basically what it is. And the government in the UK are really, really dumb sometimes. So because the UK population are quite dumb anyway, when the government says something like there's a shortage, everyone goes, go buy loads and be selfish. So if the government just kept their mouth shut, people would just carry on with their normal lives. But as soon as they said, oh, there's not many lorry drivers out there to get fuel to the petrol stations, it has just been mad. I mean, luckily, like it's died down a bit now and things. Apparently, the army have stepped in to help deliver it and things. But yeah, the UK is just like, if the government and like the media just kept their mouth shut about certain things, like those shortages just wouldn't have happened because people would just buy what they need like normal people do, rather than just being idiots and like spending all their wages on rice and chicken and petrol. Like,
Well, you're talking to an American about government and media, so I think I got you beat on that at least a little bit, though. We have the edge on idiots, I think, and stupid people over here just a little bit. But no, I totally understand what you're saying. But yeah, it's just fascinating what that's all gone into. But I mean, going back into, I mean, bodybuilding. One of the things that I would have never guessed in a million years that, I mean, I totally understand now is that, for a lot of these athletes, posing is the hardest thing for them. It's harder than your nutrition. It's harder than your working out. I would have never guessed that, like before I got this started, but now I compare it to being a perfect driver where you can be a great driver. You can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great
yeah.
poser. You can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Because I've got a dance background, like I've never really found it too difficult. I mean, the problem I think with everybody is that it's the angles, right? So everybody's got a stronger side than the other side. I actually had a conversation with my coach about this time round because he said that my posing was a bit outdated, which is probably fair, like because it literally moves with the times and things change and certain angles change. So I've seen it, like I go to see a woman like once or twice before I step on stage just to make sure my poses are like where they should be. And what I was finding as well when I went to go see it was that I was just overdoing it. So like my coach said this to me today actually when I checked in with him, is that you don't need, as a woman, you don't need to squeeze when you're doing your poses. Literally you just need to be at 30%, because when you squeeze you're not making anything else pop, you are literally just shaking and then you're going to fall over or whatever. So yeah, so it's sort of like a big learning experience. I think I've been quite fortunate because I've got good coordination. I've been a dancer. I've always been on stage all my life. So for me, it's not been too bad. Um, but for a lot of people, it's because of the angles. If you're stiff, you're gonna find it difficult. So because I'm quite flexible as well, I still stretch quite a lot. But yeah, everyone's got a good side and a bad side. And I think with posing, and I've said this to everybody, I've done posing sessions with people, and I try and make the poses suit their physique, right? Because as a woman, you've got quite a bit of leeway because it's not like front double bicep. They'll say pose from the front with your hands above your head. That could be any angle or however you want it. So some girls do front on, some do side on, some do one arm, some do two. So it honestly depends on what's best for your physique, and you don't want to show your bad areas. So when I first started bodybuilding, I very rarely showed my back unless I had to, because that was a weak point. You're not going to show your weak points, are you? You want to win. So yeah, it's all about working with what you have got and trying to minimize what you haven't got to the judges. But yeah, I think posing probably is because you want to get it perfect, right? You want to make sure you're outposing people and you hit the best angle. But I think, I've been quite fortunate with my background. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, it is nerve wracking. And the thing is, on the day, your adrenaline might be so high, you literally could go into flight mode and just forget everything that you've learned and then just stand there looking like a numpty. Like, I've seen it happen.
Absolutely. And I mean, when you walk on that stage, especially, what is that feeling like for you knowing that, I mean, you've put so much hard work into this prep? I mean, worked months upon months on it. And so many people just don't understand, the background of what goes into walking in on that stage. But when you finally are able to show off all that hard work, what is that feeling like for you?
Um, for me, I only ever get nervous for like 5 seconds. And the nerves are literally when you're stood in the wing and they start announcing, athletic figure ladies walk on stage. And then as soon as I step on stage and I'm walking across, the nerves go. And it's literally like I am just sort of living in the moment, I think. I've always got a smile on my face. Like, I always have my teeth out. I'm always known for having my teeth out and smiling. Um, but yeah, it's sort of like I don't really see anything or anyone. Like, it's really, really odd. Like, I mean, it might be a bit different because I've had laser eye surgery now. So before I just couldn't see. So it was great. Whereas now I'm actually gonna be able to see people, which might be a bit weird. But I always tend to look just straight above. Straight above. Sometimes I look at the judges and yeah, I just sort of go into my own little world, really. My own little world. I just try and enjoy it. Um, just really, really trying to make sure that I am putting everything into that, smiling, angles, just really trying to work it, trying to get everybody's attention. You literally, before you know it, like 20 minutes later, you do your pose down, you get your results, and that's it. It's done pretty much. But I think I visualize quite a lot. So when I'm on the stairmaster, I always think about the day and I always think about walking on and the posing and the routine and the results. I always sort of visualize everything happening. And for me, it then starts to build confidence. So then I know exactly how it's going to feel when I'm there, if that makes sense.
And I mean, this is so much more of a mental sport than a physical sport. And again, most people are just going to notice the physical changes because they don't understand the mental process in this. But how has this sport affected you mentally? Because I've always told people that if you can compete in a pro show or if you can even just compete in a show in bodybuilding, I mean, you can really accomplish anything in your life just with that confidence and also with that mental strength that it gives you.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I'm in prep, I'm probably the most productive, motivated, organized person ever. Like, prep for me makes me a better me. Because your life is so regimented, you live a bit like a robot. Um, and bodybuilding for me is not like a full-time job or anything. Like, it's a hobby. So I do it around being a recruitment manager, which is like 60-hour a week job anyway. So it makes me more organized, more focused. And yeah, there's some hard times. I mean, like I say, this prep has been a mad one because obviously I've had two injuries. I mean, I've had one injury in this prep, COVID in this prep as well, like getting sick. So I think mentally as well, what I find a lot of people struggle with is they start looking at people on Instagram and comparing. Um, that's when people generally fall down. And usually people that have dieted too long, maybe they've done too many shows back to back and then they start looking depleted. So it is a mental game, really. I mean, you've always just got to work harder, even on the hard days. There's some days I get up at 4 a.m. every morning when I'm in prep. And don't get me wrong, I try and get in bed for 9:30, but there's been sometimes I physically couldn't. I get in bed for 10:30. I am sleep deprived. I've really felt it this week, like, definitely felt tired this week. My body's tired, my brain is tired. And I sort of described it as, when your phone goes into like save battery mode, that's the sort of mode you end up going into because you've pushed yourself to, like, I'm way leaner than I ever have been. So I've pushed myself to the point where my body's just conserving stuff now. But mentally, yeah, I think you've got to be mentally headstrong. You've got to be very determined and you've got to know your why. You've got to have a why. You can't just do a show for the sake of doing a show because you're never going to put your all into it. I think I've had to work so much harder this prep and not put a foot wrong because I've been on limited time with an injury. Um, so I've not missed a trick. I've probably done more than what I was even expected to do because I'm just thinking I can't mess this up, because I want my pro card. So you've got to have your why. So if you don't have your why, you probably will lose your head a little bit, or you might fall over a little bit. But you've just got to surround yourself with the right people as well. So as much as I've, at the beginning of prep, I'll go join a meal with with family members and take a Tupperware. The closer you get to prep, you can't do that because you're just going to frustrate yourself quite a lot. You've got to stay a bit isolated, and it is a selfish sport. Like, you're constantly thinking about yourself. your next meal, your gym, your prep. It is a very me sport. So you've got to be prepared to make sacrifices and be okay with it. Not worry too much. Like there's, when you actually speak to the people that are close to you, they're really proud of you, 100%. Um, and you've just got to not mess anything up, because even if you have one sweet or one little thing, that's a slippery slope. Like I will not have anything that is like a little piece of a donut or a tiny bit of anything, because as soon as you break that mental strength, you're on a slippery slope regardless. So
And what was your friends and family's reaction like when you first announced that you wanted to become a bodybuilder?
um surprised, I think. It's not something like you hear of really. I mean, you hear a lot more of it now, but when I started 5 years ago, it was like, okay, weird, but we'll roll with it. I mean, my family have always been really, really supportive. They're really invested in me as a person. They're really, really proud of me, and I think, especially the person I am, they just thought, oh, here's Charlie again trying something else out. Here she goes trying something, and they probably just thought it was going to be a one-time thing, maybe. But yeah, they're really, really proud. You know,
No, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you mentioned it briefly too, but I mean, cardio is the bane of my existence. I hate it more than life itself. And when I say cardio, I mean like running. Like I can go for walks and stuff like that, and I'm fine. But unfortunately, when you become a bodybuilder, you sort of have to sign a deal with the devil when it comes to cardio. What is your relationship at this moment, or even just throughout your journey, been like with cardio?
so I'm doing the most cardio I've ever done this prep. So the way that my coach does it is Stairmaster is my cardio. So on the Stairmaster, that's your cardio, but I also have to count my steps as well. So currently, right now, I'm on 12,000 steps and an hour of cardio every day. But I've only got a week left of that, and then good thing is cardio will stop next week, and the week leading to the show, I won't have any cardio. So my cardio started probably about 30 minutes on the Stairmaster first couple of weeks, then went up to 40, then 45, then 50, then an hour. So it's gone up progressively, and it's gone up in time as well. So I only did it 3 times a week, then 4 times a week, and I've only been doing 60 minutes every day for the last couple of days. But yeah, Stairmaster's the main sort of cardio. I've always done the Stairmaster. I swear by the Stairmaster. Like it, not only is it just so good for bringing your legs through, and especially for glutes as well. But it is just consistent. It makes you sweat, but it also just keeps that heart rate in that burning stage. And I mean, an hour's long, right? Some days it goes longer than others. And I just have to keep myself occupied. So every morning I'll pick like a crime documentary, and it'll be like, yeah, it'll be an American one generally. So it'll be like Forensic Files, or it'll be something like a murder somewhere in America and they don't know who's done it, and then they'll solve it. But it'll generally be like 45 minutes long. And because I'm so invested in what's happening, you sort of forget about the time. But yeah, level wise, I started on level 8. I'm on level 13 now. It's an absolute killer. And that was just preference for me. Like, because obviously you do get used to it. Once you're in it, you get used to it. And I thought I was getting to the point where I was on like level 10 and 11. I thought I don't feel as sweaty as what I did before. So I'm just gonna go up a level. But yeah, it's all about your steps. A main trick with just losing weight is moving. So a lot of people say that they don't do cardio, which really pisses me off if they're a bodybuilder, because I guarantee if they're not doing cardio, they're counting their steps. That's still exercise. Do you know what I mean? So, they say they don't do cardio, but they definitely will. But yeah, step master all the way.
Oh, yeah. One, I mean, I count my steps too as well. And I mean, but let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman, especially in the US or the UK. What is that sort of like too? Because when you're a bodybuilder, I sort of like to compare it to sort of like being a mini celebrity where you're gonna draw their attention just because it's not something that they normally see, and it's just human nature when you see something that's not of their norm, where there's like, oh wow, that's interesting. What has that been like for you, sort of dealing with, especially as you look the way that you look right now, as you get ready for a show? Like if you're to walk out in public dressed the way you are right now, you are going to get some stares and some extra added attention. What has that been like for you, sort of dealing with that?
Um, it's really good, to be fair. Like I think there's a lot of people that really appreciate it. Like I was in the gym this morning, and my coach brings me out in my bikini in a gym full of people. Like at first when he did that years ago, I was thinking, oh my god, this is so embarrassing. But it's quite humbling really, because there's a lot of people there that like, honestly, your condition is fantastic. Like I think people that understand bodybuilding, I like it from their perspective. So people saying, honestly, mate, you look shredded, or you look like everything's just pulled through. I think you're going to do really well. Obviously, there's always the unwanted attention. Oh yeah, you've got sick delts. Like it's like yeah.
Hey, I
Um,
appreciate those people the most. The people that like appreciate delts and stuff like that. They're like, "Oh, nice delts." I'm like, "Oh, you actually know what you're talking about then," and stuff. Not like the gym bros who are like, "Oh yeah, nice arms and stuff like that." Everybody, and it's like if you are specific about a body part, I was like, "Oh, that guy actually knows his stuff."
he knows his stuff. Yeah. It's really nice. I think, for me, I've always been one of them people. I don't really pay attention to like anything outside of like my bubble. So like if I'm walking down the street, I don't people watch or anything. I'm just in my own little world, like la 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 la. And it's other people, like if I'm with my partner or if I'm with my friends who will notice what's going on. Whereas I'm like, oh, who, what, where? And I've got no idea. So I live in my own little world. But yeah, it's really, really nice. I think, yeah, this year has been a lot of people have seen me change because I've never had a diet face ever. I've got such chubby cheeks normally, and I always keep them. So when I saw my coach today, he was like, "I cannot believe we've got you a diet face." I was like, honestly, people have said that I look ill though. Like if I haven't got makeup on, my friend said the other day, like, "Why do you look more ill than I've ever seen you?" And I was like, it's just because my face has started gaunting in, which is obviously a good thing. But yeah, I am excited to get a little bit of chub back in my cheeks because I just feel a little bit like burny at the moment.
Well, and another myth that I love to bust too is that so many people just don't understand that that look that you present on stage is not sustainable. You're not going to be able to look like that 24/7. Which, I
It'd
mean,
be great and
oh,
feel
it would be amazing if it could, but unfortunately, you deal with post-show blues and putting on the weight. What has that been like for you? Sort of realizing, from when you first started, like, hey, this is I'm not going to be able to keep this shape. To has it gotten easier for you to accept that now and to sort of just go with it as your career's gone on?
Um, it's always hard. Like I think I've always been quite lean, so even in off season, I will have some visible abs. Like that's just the way that I always keep myself. And I've always been one of these people who I will eat, but my body will tell me to stop as well. That I can't push past that point. So I've always been like that, but that is the hardest bit because I love being shredded. I absolutely love it, but it isn't sustainable. And like, especially how I feel like, mentally drained in that power saver mode. It's your body crying out for fats and energy and extra food. So it is always the hardest bit because you don't want to rebound. And I have rebounded before where you just start eating crap, crap, crap. And then you balloon up, right? Don't get me wrong, like the day after your show, like do what you want, but it is so important to take it from where it is back down. And that's what I've learned really, especially if you don't want to rebound. And especially if you want to utilize that period, because when your body's in this state, it is the optimum time to actually build muscle as well when you start fueling it. So the plan really that I've sort of learned and I've got better with is that yes, have your day off after your show, whatever, and then still keep in some sort of routine and bring yourself down. So I'll still keep some cardio in, won't be an hour, I'm telling you that right now, fasted at 4 a.m. But I'll take it down and do maybe 40 minutes, and then I'll do 30 minutes, and then I'll do 20, and then I'll stop. Because what you don't want to do is still keep cardio in when you're in an off season because you're not going to have the same effect. So I'll bring it down slowly, and it's the same with calories. I will take them up slowly. So again, my coach, I'm sure, will give me my plan, but generally it'll be what I'm eating now. Plus, I'll get obviously like on a night, I'll just make my tea. So regardless, and this is the thing with bodybuilding, you're sort of keeping that lifestyle. I'll still prep my meals for work. I'll still prep my snacks, my breakfast, my lunch. And then what I tend to do is that on a night, I'll just cook whatever I want. So I might make a curry or I might make a shepherd's pie or I might make something quite nice, then have that for lunch the next day. It'll still be quite clean, but the trick is to be smart, definitely, because your body's a temple, right? And you could do anything to mess it up, but mentally that is the hardest bit, is going back to a state where you can't see every muscle and being okay with it. It gets a little bit better, but I think because I love being shredded, I do struggle with that side of it. And that's probably why my body restricts myself, going, "Ooh, you've had one donut, that's enough now," and then I physically can't even eat it again. But yeah, it doesn't. It gets easier, but it never goes away. That's probably what I'd say.
And what advice would you have for someone who's just thinking about getting started in bodybuilding?
I'd probably say find a coach. definitely find a coach, because you don't want to prep yourself. You're not going to have the same outlook, the same eye. Find a coach, do research on your coach as well, and make sure he or she is the right coach for you, because every coach is very, very different, and you've got to gel with that person. My coach is fantastic. Like, I love him, but I'm sure there's some people that maybe don't find his coaching style like right for them. So you've got to do a bit of research on that. That'd be my first thing. My next thing would be, you need to sort of assess where you're at as well, because if you are really, really overweight and nowhere near in shape, you need to get yourself to some sort of level to actually even start a prep. I've seen plenty of people go from off season into a prep, and they've got massive, and they've done like a 30-week prep, and that's just not great. Like, you don't ever want to do that. If your prep's going to take you longer than 16 weeks, you need to get down and actually get into that phase. And probably even do a bit of off season first to get down before you actually go into a prep. Um, and I'd probably say just be ready for it. Like, you've got to be fully committed. So you need to actually be 100% sure you want to do it. And if you're in, you're all in. You don't want to jump out. And my coach said this quite recently, because he did a post about my collarbone, and the fact that, like, he thought it was going to be a long shot and it wasn't. And it's the 1%. Bodybuilding is the 1%. Like, it is the 1% of people. But the mentality, like, from what I've been through, where I've broken my collarbone in prep, still managed to get ready for a show and actually stand a decent chance. That is the 1% of the 1%. You've got to be that sort of person who isn't going to give up when it gets tough, because it is going to get tough. It's not going to be easy. Don't underestimate it. Definitely don't underestimate it. And also stay humble as well. Like, I've seen one of my pet peeves as well. Like, I've been bodybuilding for 5 years now, and I've not placed in shows. I've placed low in shows. I've won shows. I've pretty much been in every single bloody placing you could think of. Always stay humble as well. Like, I've seen so many people this year, like, win a show and then actually start turning into a bit of an idiot. And it's sort of like, there's always somebody out there bigger and better than you, and you're not going to win all the time, believe me. And then people do end up getting stepped down a peg or two, and then wonder why they haven't won. And it's like, well, you're not the best. Do you know what I mean? Like, you never will be. Nobody's ever going to be the best all the time. Like, it's just not the way it is. Bigger and better people come along. So yeah, staying humble as well is just a massive thing, because it's a subjective sport as well. Like, at the end of the day, like, I found this out quite recently, is that because I'm a judge as well, everybody likes different looks. Some people like my look because I'm bouncy and I'm full, and lean, but some people don't like it because they prefer the grainy look, which is like where you look quite grainy. I'm never going to have that physique that goes grainy. So if there's a panel of judges who like the grainy look, I'm probably not going to do as well as I like. So it is subjective. So even if you don't get the placing that you want, at the end of the day, everybody wants to do well and place high and win. That's the reason we're there, right? So if you come away without a placing, or you come away with a low placing, actually, before you run your mouth on social media, get your pictures back, have a look, and then actually see why. Because you'll be very surprised. There's been some times, I hold my hands up, where I've come second or third, and I've looked at it, and at first I thought I looked quite good, and then when you actually look at the detail, it's like, well, actually, I wasn't lean enough. My legs weren't lean enough. And that's clearly what people look for. So yeah, assess yourself and get other options as well, but get other opinions from people that aren't close to you, because the people that are close to you are always going to say, oh, you should have won that. But yeah, and at the end of the day, judges do give feedback. Like, I give feedback on every athlete. Every athlete I judge, I write feedback. It's a very quick job because you've got so many people to get through. And it might just be a little thing like your tan was off, or your left pose didn't actually come out properly, or your left glute wasn't fired, or your lats didn't come out, or your legs weren't lean enough. Like, generally, a big one I always find is legs haven't come down. Legs is a really big one. But yeah, just take everything in your stride, and like, don't get beaten up if you don't get the result that you want. Go back and reflect, come back stronger.
And if there was someone walk up to you and said, there's one thing that you could change about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Oh God, that's a tough one.
I saved the $1 million questions for the end here.
Yeah, no. So if there's one thing in bodybuilding that I'd want to see change, it's tough really, because there's quite a few things really. Like,
You
I
can you
wish,
can you can go through multiple ones if you want. Absolutely.
yeah, I was gonna say, like, I wish, more like, I wish there was other ways to get to the Olympia. I think that's a big one. Like, the only way to get to the Olympia is IFBB, and even still, it's a very windy road, especially from the UK. Like, and it's very, like, nobody really knows how to get there. It's not a black and white. You do this, you do this, you do this. So I think a roadmap or other federations that feed into the Olympia would be really, really good, because that is the prestigious event. Everybody knows it. That's what bodybuilding is known for. So for people that are at the top of the game, that have pro cards or are really good athletes, for them to be able to know where they can get to is really important. So I think a clear plan of actually getting to the top level is really, really important, and that needs to be clarified. Or, you can't just have one federation that feeds into that. I think there needs to be multiple ones potentially, because, like I say, the PCA federation that I compete with, I've competed with NABA, I've competed with natural feds as well. I've done all sorts of different feds. They're all very good, and they all have different things. Like the PCA athletes, I know probably would win loads of the IFBB stuff, and some of the IFB pros might not even place in a PCA show. So I think more shows need to feed into the Olympia 100%. That would probably get more people into the sport. I think in terms of judging as well, every show has a criteria, and the criteria is quite black and white. It's like, especially for a woman, it's pretty much like feminine is the big thing. Must look feminine, must have this and that, depending on the category. I think that needs to be scrutinised a bit more, because there has been, it is a subjective sport, and I get that. But if somebody doesn't have the full package, they shouldn't be winning a show. If somebody's lean but they don't have any muscle development in their legs, they shouldn't win. Do you know what I mean? You need to have the full package. And I think, if judges actually really thought about the criteria as they go with a tick box exercise, like do boom, 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 symmetry, proportions, leanness, conditioning, and actually went through, they'd be quite surprised in terms of actually, oh, that is the right person, rather than just looking for the person that they know. And again, judges from different walks of life as well. There's a lot of coaches out there at the moment as well. And not saying it's biased or anything like that, but there are some judges out there that might have more favoritism towards other people. So I think that could be looked at quite well to make it just a little bit more even for people. And for women as well, I mean, they've started doing it. They've started doing height classes now, which is great. I mean, I love a big class. Like when I was winning the British finals, it was like 36 girls. It was a really big honour to do that. Whereas now they split the classes into tall, medium, short. There's only 10 in the class, and it's like, yeah, I get it. But you haven't technically won athletic or turn figure, because there's other three winners. You know what I mean? So it'd be quite good as well if they are going to just do it in height. They need to do it in weight as well, because at the end of the day, like, I'm 5'4" and I weigh 55 kilos, but there might be a 5'4" person out there that weighs 65. So I think weight, they do it for men, they could do weight for women as well, because at the end of the day, it's more weight, more muscle technically. So
I mean, I'm happy they did the height thing, because me being 6'3", if I had to go on the same stage as you, really, it's like that's not really fair. If I'm like a full foot taller than someone and you're judging them, because let's be honest, shorter people, they're easier to dense on, they're easier to pack on muscle. That's why if I ever get like I've had a few 6-footers on the podcast. So I was like, okay, teach me your ways and stuff like that, because that's. But yeah, I mean, that with bodybuilding, I mean, there's so much great stuff with it, but also too, I mean, I think they got to have more publicity, because like they used to have ESPN used to have the finals and stuff like that in the 90s, but now they don't even do that anymore. So that's really one for me. But I mean, if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where would you like to be at just in your overall life? What are some goals that you would like to have achieved?
I think definitely, obviously, my goal this year is to hopefully get my pro card for PCA. That's a really, really big one for me, because I feel like I'll have got to where I want to with them. Maybe do a pro show as well, just to see what that feels like. Because when you become a pro, you're at the bottom of the level again. You know, so yeah, definitely want to get my pro card with athletic and see how that goes. Definitely want to look at the avenues for IFBB fitness, because that's going to be a new challenge for me. Because although I'm a dancer and fitness is my thing and the routine's my thing, I am going to have to learn certain movements that you have to have in there. So that's the next sort of step for me, is pro card, hopefully with PCA, move into IFBB fitness. And I do want to get to the Olympia eventually. I really, really do. Arnold's Olympia, lead that way. And when I eventually get there, I'm hoping, I mean, when I eventually have a family and like maybe God knows when, I have to give up my abs for that. So that's going to be a long time. I definitely wouldn't bodybuild after that, because it, like I say, it's selfish sport. I kind of want to get to the very elite level to then be like, right, I've done it now. I've achieved it. It's done. So yeah, that's the aspiration really. Become a professional athlete. And there's all sorts of other little things in there as well that I've started brainstorming. Like I really want to do a little bit more in terms of maybe having some passive income. So although I'm a recruitment manager and I'm growing into be a director at my education recruitment company, I really want to focus on that as my career, but also I want to develop a fitness app as well. Like I know it's a lot of investment, but in terms of passive income, like I kind of want it to be accessible for all people on there. So obviously bodybuilders, but people that can have access and pay a subscription for workout plans, nutrition, supplement advice, but in like an all in like a little nice app. So kind of like Joe Wicks his app, but as like a fitness app for myself. So that's another project I'm maybe thinking about moving forwards. And then yeah, I think in terms of like other things, like bodybuilding for me is a hobby. So actually just moving on with my career as well. So hopefully going to be a director in a couple of years. And that keeps me really, really busy. So I've got to sort of wear different hats every day. So like cardio Charlie, work Charlie, gym Charlie. I've got to wear so many different hats, but I wouldn't have it any other way, I don't think.
Yeah, and lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I probably want to give a shout out to my coach actually, Dan Welburn. So he, like I say, he's a big part of my journey. Like without him, I wouldn't be where I am really in bodybuilding. He's been with me from the very first time, and I've been with him ever since. Like I've never switched coaches. He's a great mentor, but he's also a great friend as well. And I think he's took me to such levels, such elite levels as well. And he's a fantastic coach. He's doing really, really well. He's actually on to win the Coaches Award of the Year as well with PCA. Like they've done an awards for like how many overalls and wins the coaches get who are like registered with these people. So he's like absolutely smashed it. Like he's at the top massively. He's got something stupid like 10 overall wins and like it's doing really, really well. So yeah, big shout out to Dan because he's the one that makes the magic happen. He gives me the plan and I just do it. So big shout out.
Hey, it takes both, I guess. And again, everyone, go and give her a follow on her social media. I'll leave a link to her Instagram. Everyone, though, buyer beware. You will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating those Twinkies and to get into shape. But is there any last piece of advice or any last thing you'd like to say?
No, it's just been absolutely fantastic, and I think I'm always somebody who wants to help people and guide people. So like, don't be afraid to like drop me a message. Like I literally reply to everybody. Sometimes it might be a day later, but that will just help me through cardio as well. So yeah, like I'm more than happy to give any advice. Like people have got, I mean, I generally get messages of people saying like, "How do I lose weight?" And it's so difficult to answer that question.
It's like, do you have time for me to type an entire book basically back to you? Then
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like always available for advice and stuff. And I just hope I've inspired some people because like my main thing is like you can literally do whatever you set your mind to. You just got to want it enough. You really have just got to want it. And when you know your why and why you're doing it and why you want to do it, then literally no one can stop you.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. And again, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and, sharing your journey with us. I really, really appreciate it. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing off. Have a great day, everyone.